Very good point, Lime. Hey, Lime. How are you today? Thanks for saying that. Can't hear anything. Yeah. So I was talking for a few minutes with my mic off. Sorry for that, guys. Sorry for that. So let me go back for a moment. So if you're not familiar with this project, this is a Kentico Advantage site, and this site has been implemented, I think like 2 years ago, something like that. Um, and right now I'm trying to update the source plugin. Yeah, the newest source plugin that's been released, I think like 3 months ago, for Kentico content, that is currently the fastest source plugin ever. You see that on the willet.build site, where content is mentioned among other CMSs, and you see that the build time is currently still 5 seconds, which is the best among all the CMSs. So what I'm doing, you see this is the repository, it's open source, feel free to take a look. We're working on the source branch. You see on the master branch, that's actually the generated site. So we're always working on the source. And this is, yeah, you see here, for example, 15 months ago, the last change. So what I'm trying to do here is update this whole site to use the new plugin. And the new plugin is built for speed, which means it's optimized quite a bit. And that actually means I have to do some things myself manually. So that's just the intro into all these things, right? And last time I was actually able to resolve all the rich text fields, as you see here. Also, these tables of content work, so you can click on these links to go to a specific section of the page. But what is not working yet are these scenarios. So these little boxes that contain some additional information to what is presented here. And these scenarios are stored as linked items. So we're going to have to figure out how to resolve these. So we're on the planning page. Let me jump to a planning page. This one is slightly bigger. That's because I'm on 125%. So on planning phase, I think this was identifying data structures. So if we go here, I think that the scenarios are not there. Yeah. So we have to add this here. So the last thing is we highly recommend, and here it's we highly recommend. So the scenarios are just missing here. So let's take a look at what we can do about this. So we're probably looking at face template. So this is not a component, this is a template face. And I'm not going to get into the logic here, but what I'm looking at is, so there's the table of contents, there is a content zone, and there is the rich text element. So the rich text element is what actually processes the content, the rich text content. But we still need to process the scenarios here, you see? So there is a content zone with scenarios, and it takes data, face elements, scenarios. Now, let's see what is the problem there. So we are using face.elements.content, and here we should be using face.elements.scenarios. Yeah. So let's take a look at if we actually have some scenarios there, because maybe we're not getting them in the GraphQL query, guys. Let me see. Oh yeah, we do. It's here, content item scenario, but there was actually a new extra field called value that was introduced here. So maybe it's just a naming thing, scenarios.value. Let me see if that will actually solve these things. So we're looking for face elements, yeah. Elements scenarios dot value, or we can actually do it like this, scenarios, and then check if the dot value is an array, and then if the array has at least one item, right? And at that point we need content zone, and we need the scenarios face elements scenarios dot value. Let me see if this is actually gonna help, just like that. Oh, yeah, it definitely helped. Cannot read property ID of undefined. Perfect. So we need to do some final touches into this component as well, it seems. So let's take a look. Scenarios class extends React component. That's nice. This props data. So I assume in data we have the array of scenarios. Cool. If this is an array and there is at least one item, we can continue. And this data map scenario index, what's he complaining about? Oh, the this props scenario system is not set. If scenarios, container scenarios. So this props data map. Okay, this should be fine. So let's take a look at scenario. The scenario gets data in a property called scenario. And that means scenario.system.id, that should be there. Or we don't have the ID in the GraphQL query. That's also a possibility. Let me see. Yeah, so here you see scenario, value, elements, detail, and title. We're not selecting the system ID. So I need to add that here. So system. Now why do we have? Okay, system ID. Now this should get rid of that problem. Let's see. Nope, still not there. Can retrieve property ID of undefined. So system is undefined. Content item scenario, that shouldn't be undefined. Let's see what we get here. Yeah. So before render, I'm just gonna output this props scenario just to see what's going on here. Oh, that was a bit too up. Okay, let's see. Okay, now we got this here. Yeah, and now it starts working. You know, this is happening sometimes. That it's just not rebuilt the right way. Maybe I need to clear cache more often. But you see now, if I refresh the page again to make sure that this works, you see that right now we have all the scenarios here. Cool, so that was a really easy change. I thought that would be more work, but cool, looks nice. So that concludes scenarios, so that's working now. What else do we need to do here, guys? The menu items, right? We need to fix the menu items. So let's take a look at the menu component. I think we are looking at, yeah, nav menu. So the menu is here. Current phase. Yeah, I think the isActive property actually makes all the difference. Let me see if there is actually any item marked as isActive, but I don't think so. No. All the LD elements are without a class name. And the link is also, oh, there is a class, but there is also one. So that means it's just empty. So that's this case. Okay, so isActive is not working currently. Let's say what we can do about that here. So current phase is phases, submenu items, elements, content item value ID. So we are looking at, right, so the logic here is that we are looking at the current submenu item elements. Okay, let me see. For each menu item, we are checking if we are on a current phase. Submenu item, elements, content, value, ID. Okay, so if the current phase, all right, now I can see what's going on here. So for every single menu item here, for all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 phases, we are checking. So each of these, you know, phases, this is a menu item, this is not a phase, yeah? The menu item called developing here contains a nested item. I can maybe show you that in the headless CMS. Oh, not app, not content.ai. And we're gonna switch to Kentico Advantage project. Kentico Advantage. So here you can see this is a gathering, but I want to show you not face, but I want to show you navigation, how that is created here, and I want to show you a route of the navigation. Let me just switch that here. Content time navigation items. So here is navigation route, yeah. And under that, we have 2 child items, project phases and conclusion. That's these 2 things, project phases and conclusion. And under project phases, we have a bunch of other child items. Those are also navigation items. And one of them is developing here. Now, when we look at the developing item, it contains content item, which is the phase, right? So that's what actually connects the phase with the navigation item. So that's this relation. So what we are doing for every single menu item, that's one of them is also this nav developing, we are checking the content item ID if that matches the current page ID, and the current page ID will take it from the phase as well. So that's how we find a current phase. We take submenu item elements, content item, value the first content item, so there is always only one, but we need to, this is an array always, and ID. And phases, we are getting phases from the GraphQL query as well. So you see the phases are in an array distinguished by their own ID. Now the only thing we need to do, so this is not a current phase. This is a current only in the scope of this for each, or this cycle, this map function. Yeah, and this current phase we need to compare if the current phase of that specific menu item. So for developing menu item, this is going to be the developing phase. For testing menu item, it's going to be a testing phase, and so on. So we need to check if the ID of the phase of the currently processed menu item is the same as the active page ID. Now, in order to do that, we need to figure out, so this is the menu component. So we need to find out if the menu item, or if the active page ID is actually set. Because I think that maybe I omitted that for the sake of making this stream a bit easier. Let me see, where do we have the menu, by the way? Is it in layout? So in the layout, there's mobile. Okay, here we go. So menu, active page ID is this props page ID. Okay, so it's coming from the top. So let's take a look at template phase. In here, I assume we're using layout. Layout page ID equals phase system ID. So that should be correctly set. We can take a look at that, by the way. If we just output it here, phase.system.id. Let's try that and see if we get the right ID here. So 2EB6. Let's see if that is correct. So content item of phase. This should be the same ID here. Oh, not codename, but ID. Okay, so 2EB6 A258. So it seems this is correct. This is fine. So we are getting the right ID here, and we are passing that over to the menu. Oh, that's in the layout here. So active page ID is correctly set, which means the problem is probably somewhere in the menu. So let's take a look. In here, I'm just gonna output this props active page ID just to be sure that the ID is really there. Okay, 12 times 2EB6 A258. So this is fine. This is correct. This is correctly set. So one problem less. And we need to see if something is actually set into the current phase. Okay, so the current phases are also correctly set, but I'm looking for the one that should be right for our use case, but that I'm not seeing that one here. How is that possible? So that should have been 2EB6. I'm not seeing 2EB6 anywhere. That's interesting. So subphases are there, but we are not getting the right phase. Okay. But the weird thing is that it's actually found by the item ID. Let's do it this way. Let's try to see if this ID is correct. Okay, I'm not seeing the 2EB6 here anywhere. So it seems like this is wrong, guys. Submenu item elements, content item value ID. And the problem is that we don't have the system.id. Let's see if this is gonna fix it. Okay, 12 times undefined. Now that's much better. So let's see, content item value dot system. I think that this is definitely correct. So that means we have a problem in the GraphQL query. Let's take a look at that one. So we are taking not phases but the navigation items. We are taking elements of that. We are looking at content item, but we are looking at ID directly here. But we should be looking for that under system. So yeah. Mistake here in the GraphQL query. So let's save that. I think we might have another problem here. This should also be system.id, but we'll fix that. Item phase. All content item. This is interesting. That are phase. Okay, we could have used all phases, but that's fine. Phase. Yeah, so we don't need to use the ID here. What we actually want is system ID. And from the subphases, we also want not ID, but system ID. But let's fix it right now. I hope this is not going to break everything, but we'll see. So now we need to look at phases. Where do we set them? Navigation items, data phases. Here we go. Data phases nodes for each. Phases item dot system dot ID equals item. Okay, this starts to look much better. So now we should have, okay, some issues here. Cannot read property ID if undefined. Menu 180. Yeah, current phase ID. You see, we're still using the wrong IDs everywhere. So we're looking for phases value dot system dot ID. Current phase dot system dot ID. Oh, current phase dot elements dot subphases dot value sum, and here we also need to use subphase dot system ID. So this is in case we are looking at a subphase. We can't just compare the top level page ID, but we also need to go inside and check if the phase has some kind of a subphase, and for every we're looking for at least one. Yeah, that's why we're using sum here. We're looking for at least one subphase that has the same ID as the active page. So in this case, the isActive is going to be true. Let's save this and let's see. Okay, got a bunch of errors here. But we have the two EB6 here. See? So we're getting closer. Menu JS 193, there is still an issue here. Current phase dot system dot ID. Okay, still an issue here. Let's go from the top. So cannot read property system of undefined 193. Okay, that's because we have this problem here. So we're looking for system ID for current phase. Okay. Now this is something else. This is unrelated to what I'm looking at right here. But you see here, everything is working well without any issue. Let me just remove the console log here. Gonna save this again. And let's see if the website is working now. Okay, so developing, you see that in the menu we now have this marked as an active item. So if we go inside, developing in a team, cannot read property. Okay, we got an issue here. Cannot read property URL of undefined. Let's try a different subphase then. We can look at this a bit later. Okay, so now we're in a subphase called functional requirements, but the gathering is still active. So it seems like this is working well. Okay, I'm looking for something else. Let's say this one. Implementing best practices, perfect. This is still active, so that's nice. All right, so that's one thing less that we need to do. So the next thing, let's take a look at the problematic one then. So that was developing in a team, I think. Yeah, so we're looking at an image here, resolve image, cannot read property URL of undefined. So it seems like there's an image that does not have a URL, or that image is undefined. So let's take a look at what's causing the issue here. Oh, not model, but template phase. Line was 113. So that's here. That's my resolve image function. So what I'm gonna do is just console log here the image to see if this is really undefined. I'm not seeing anything here. Let me refresh the page. Cannot read URL of undefined. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to debug here. Okay, bunch of errors. Undefined. Okay. So why are we trying to resolve an image that's undefined? What we could do is, well, first of all, let me see what is the subphase here. So subphase is, or is that content? Now this is a subphase. Developing in a team. This subphase. Let's take a look at what we have here. So this is one image here. This is the second image here. So we're getting we're getting undefined 2 times. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Still, I don't know why images are undefined. Let's see if we have this in the GraphQL query. So this is face.elements.content. That's the rich text field, right? And it acts as a modular content here. And it needs to have a .images set in the GraphQL query as well. So let's see if that's true. So we're looking at face, content, images, URL, and description. So we should be good. We should be good here, guys. Value, images, links, modular content. Yeah, that should be all fine. So that's gonna be a problem somewhere else. I'm just gonna go ahead and console log the whole face elements content to see if we're not missing something here. Just to make sure we have the data in place. Okay, let's refresh this, get a fresh console here. Okay, here we go. So distributed element development approach. Images, there is actually an array of 2, and it most definitely has a URL. So that should work. Content images. Resolve image. Let's verify it once more, but I think this is quite clear that we have the data in place. Okay, here we go. Array of 2 items, and it has both URL and description. Description is null, but we don't care about that for now. But the URL is definitely there. If we look at that, you see the image is there. So we should be fine here, guys. Why is this not working then? Let's see. So images are set, but the resolved image is undefined. Let's take a look at the rich text element, what it's actually doing. Oh, we can't actually do this because I installed this as an npm package. But never mind. What we can do is take a look at content Gatsby source plugin. This should lead us to the GitHub repository. And here we will find there are Gatsby content components. That's what I'm actually using, right? The rich text is a Gatsby content component. This is the npm package that I'm using. So what I want to check is this part. So rich text element dot images. That's what I'm doing. But the resolve image is complaining about this being empty. Images have to contain at least the image ID property. Okay, now that might be my issue. I'm afraid that I'm missing that here. Elements, content, yeah. So images, I'm getting only URL and description, and I think I need to include the image ID as well. So let me just quickly look at the graph EQL here. Let's take a look what we have here. So yeah, I think we can use this. So on face, I want to look at content. And under content, I'm looking at images. And you see, I'm using only description and URL. But the problem is, if you look at value, the problem is that in the value, if there is an image here, maybe I'll be lucky enough to find one. No, there isn't one. But every image is basically an object here in the code, right? And the code contains an ID of the image, which in this case, I'm not getting. So if I use the image ID, as you see, there is an empty array of images. Again, yeah, this is everywhere. So this is not going to work here, but I need to include the image ID in the GraphQL query that gets images. In that case, I'm providing a way for the resolver to connect these two things, to connect the object in the rich text markup with the actual image. So let's see if this is gonna work now. Okay, still undefined. So maybe I just need to rebuild. Let me see. So building development bundle. Seems everything should be working. Let's try it. Okay, the page now loaded, so that's a good sign. Now you see the image is in place. So we were just missing the image ID here. Otherwise, everything is fine. Perfect, so we got that working. And I think that's almost everything. Let's take a look at, on conclusion, there is an issue here. Cool. Let's see. And I think we also, the searching is also not working. Or is it? Let me see. Oh, no, the search is working. Cool. So nothing for us to change there. Perfect. So the search is working. So the only thing we need to do then is the conclusion page. Let me see what's going on here. So cannot read property, all content item page of undefined. Data is undefined. And this is a page template, right? The conclusion is a page. So obviously this is a page template. Yeah, because nobody actually got this working yet. All right, now let me just uncomment this. And uncomment this as well. And remove the p tag here. And now let's see. I'm just gonna check this GraphQL query real quick in the GraphQL Explorer, just to make sure we're not missing something. So let's delete this. Let's make this nice. So this should equal the ID. Okay, we can remove that filter. And obviously there's going to be some issues with the resolved HTML because we're not using that, yeah. So let me fix that here. So we need for content, this is the same case as with the phases, you know. So for content we need the value, but we need also a bunch of other things. I'm just gonna copy that over from the phase. So that's this part. Oh, modular content. I'm not sure if we can actually use modular content here. References. Yeah, let's see. But I'm just gonna copy this whole thing without modular content. I'm gonna hope that it's not there. So that fixes the content. And then we're getting references, and I assume that this is modular content. So what we're gonna need here is, I guess we're somewhere over here. This is some modular content for a specific type of data, I assume. Okay, let me see, where do I have my, here it is. Okay, there is the CMS. Let me open the conclusion page to see what we are dealing with here. So this is a page type conclusion here. And here we got the reference. So that's a link item. That has a title and a URL, right? So what we need to do here is look for content item link. And on that link, we are looking for title and a URL, not ID. All right. We are probably also looking for a system ID, it seems. So I'm gonna include that as well. And we can remove this. Cool, and I think we're done here. Conclusion, we got the references, and of course project faces, but we don't care about that page. So I'm just gonna take this whole query and copy it back. Of course, I'm gonna have to keep the filter here, so I'm just gonna move it up there and fix it when I copy the query here. Ooh, but we're also getting navigation items here. I totally forgot about that. Okay. So this is the first query then. And the first query will have a filter for the page. Then we have a next GraphQL query here, content item, navigation item. Let's see if this one's gonna work. Okay, this seems to work. This seems to work, so I guess we don't have to change that. Let me just save this and we'll see if this works. I assume it's not gonna work, because if something works just like that, it's usually a bad sign. So let's see. Unknown argument system on field all content item page. All content item page. So let's see what we can do here. So we want to filter that based on system ID. Filter on system ID to be equal to something. So is it possible that we're using filter here? Just the keyword filter? System ID, otherwise it seems good. Cannot query field result HTML on. Where is that? 61. Okay, that's in the code. That's fine. All right. So the GraphQL query seems to be working. So now, I think this is very similar to what we were doing in the phase. Oh, this is phase template. Wow, okay. My mistake. Let's move everything back. We don't want to be changing phase at all. Okay. Whew. I was changing a different template. Not what I wanted to do. All right, now this makes more sense. So here we need this query. So this is correct. ID, filter system. Okay. I'm just gonna take this out and replace this query. And then put the filter back. So, but we already have that here. So filter ID equals ID, not an empty string. Let's save that. Okay, that looks much better. Now I don't see anything red here, which is usually good. We're getting the first page. That's fine. And we are using the layout breadcrumbs. Let's see if we actually get something in return here. No, okay, cannot read. All content item page of undefined. Data is still undefined. How can data be undefined when I have it right here? All content item page. Okay, let me rebuild this. Maybe that's the problem. So it's true that I changed the query completely. So maybe that is the problem that I need to always rebuild after this. I've had some issues with caching and Gatsby being actually too eager to cache stuff. So maybe that's my problem. Oh, here we go. So now we got the conclusion page up and running, but there is no content here. And there is a content. So this is the same thing as we did with with the phases, you see there is a result HTML, but it doesn't work like that anymore. So this is something I need to change. Let me just comment this and put here. I'm just going to copy that over from phase because I think it's going to be very similar. So we're looking at the rich text element in the content zone. And I have to say, I kind of like this a bit more. So previously you had to do all the resolution of the rich texts in the resolvers in the classes that were related to specific models, right? But here you can do all the resolution right on the page where you need to resolve that stuff. So that seems much easier to me. So we're gonna call parse tables in case there are some headings. That's fine. Add anchors. We're not looking at face elements, but page elements. Content.value. I assume it's content. Let me see. Yeah, it's content, so we're good. We're gonna use the images here, page elements, content, images, links as well. But we don't have any linked items, so we're not gonna resolve those. Images will be resolved into simple image tag, and links will be resolved to a link URL slug. So this is the same as before. Now we're not resolving linked items, so I can remove that. And I think we're fine. Let's try it. Yeah, he's not liking link and add anchors because those functions are not defined here. Let me see if they are defined. Yeah, so add anchors is defined here. So I'm just gonna add parse tables too. So I'm gonna remove that here. So I assume that's only for face pages. So I'm just gonna remove it. And of course, we don't import the rich text element and link, so that's something I need to fix as well. I'm just gonna borrow that from phase, the rich text element and link. So these two imports, I'm just gonna have to add them here. And I can remove this, by the way. Let me rebuild this. Okay, here we go. Building, building, building. I think we are almost done. Okay. Conclusion page. Show me the magic. So you see now the content is in place. Let me see if there is something else there. Oh, references, right. We don't have the references there, but otherwise the page is working. So the only last thing to do are the references, page element, and we are experiencing the same thing as before. So page elements references is actually an array. So we need the value here. References.value.length. References.value. So let's see if that works. Yay, we got the references here. And the link is working. Perfect. So it seems like the whole website is now working. Oh, this is still not working. Maybe this is still cached. I don't know. No, he still doesn't like it. Let me try to refresh this a few more times now. Console log image. Show me if it's actually here in the log. Yeah, I may have reverted that change. You know, when I was changing it here, maybe I reverted. Yeah, I reverted that change. So I think it was image ID. Let's rebuild this completely. That happens. That's why you should do commits and pushes after every change that you successfully made. And I always forget about that. So this is going to be one giant commit not good. Okay, let's see. Yay, this is working. All right. So the whole site seems to be now working. Gathering, planning, mapping requirements. Everything seems to be good. Awesome. Okay, so now that's working. We can actually take a look at some of these things. So at Face.js number 46, there was an issue here. Expected 3 errors. All right, that's fine. We can change that. 127 as well. So I kind of like these errors or these warnings. It tells you directly what you need to do to make Visual Studio happy. So that's good. So what else do we have here? Same thing, next breath buttons. On line 109. Okay. Mobile bar, ref attribute. So these are really small things. Require a role. Yeah, these are really small things, guys. Menu 170. Okay. These are really small things. I'm gonna go through these later when I create the pull request. I'm gonna make sure that this is clean to make sure my colleagues are not making fun of me for not being able to solve these little issues. But the main point is that from the functionality point of view, this is still working nicely. Yeah, so the whole thing is working nicely. We got all the rich text, the search is working, the breadcrumbs are working, things are being set as active here, conclusion is working, so I think we are almost good to go. Yeah. All right, guys. Do you have any questions to what I'm doing here? I hope not, because everything seems to be so easy, and it's just that, when you're upgrading your Gatsby sites, it's just a matter. The 90% of what I was doing here is just changing the naming conventions and making sure that the GraphQL queries were updated, because some of the fields were just changed, and all of these things are nicely documented here. Yeah. So if you go back into the main repository, that's the content Gatsby packages, and see the Gatsby source content plugin, there is a link for, I saw it somewhere over here, for migration. Let me find this. Now maybe it was one level up, or upgrade, update. It was somewhere over here. Relationships, prerequisites. Let me see. I know the link was somewhere over here. How to install. Examples. Upgrade section, here you go. So to see upgrade instructions, see upgrade section. And here you can see almost everything that's related to this upgrade, right? As I said, 90% of what I was doing was just changing namings of things. And this website, the one that I was working with, was actually built with version 2, I think. So the documentation is not going into that deep history, but so only the version 3. But that's fine. I was still able to do it in quite short time, to be honest, and everything is working quite nicely now. So yeah, hopefully the update will be easier for you than it was for me, because there was a lot of data, a lot of logic, business logic that I had to learn again in order to update it. But otherwise, there was no big issue, to be honest. So it was fine. I don't like these styles though. I don't know what's your experience, but I don't like these styles to be in components. Some people, find it nice. I don't. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. I'm gonna make sure to convert this into a pull request tomorrow to fix all the little things, refs and everything. I'm gonna create a pull request with this into this repository. So stay tuned here. And the next stream, I don't know what we're gonna be doing next stream, guys. I was thinking of maybe looking more at Vue.js and looking at Nuxt, because Vue.js just got its version 3 live, and even though we don't have all the tools, upgraded to V3 yet, I still think it's a great framework to look at and to learn. So maybe we'll take a look at some of the key differences next week. All right, so thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. The link will be somewhere, I don't know, somewhere down there, below this video. Make sure to subscribe. I'll be happy to see you here next week as well. Remember, it's every Thursday, 4 p.m. That's check time. Otherwise, it's 3 p.m. BST. Let me know if that time frame actually works for you. Maybe it's a bit too early for the US, but let me know if I can make this a bit better. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.